Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is session 3AE, Protection and Compliance of Today's Connected Mainframe. I've got Stuart actually here in the on the conference call, but he's provided a video which I will play for you, and then we can ask questions and debate when that's completed. So if you're all okay, I shall start playing the video now.
Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Stuart McIrvin. I have responsibility for product management across our mainframe security and database tools portfolios. But today I want to concentrate specifically on mainframe security. So you're all here because you have a mainframe and therefore fully understand how important this platform is to our businesses today. And in order to maintain availability of these platforms, which is clearly critical for our businesses, we have to focus on security. And we all know that security is a critical differentiator for this platform. Nobody would doubt that. And the other thing that I'd like to clearly highlight, with security is if we do security right on the mainframe, we truly have the most secure platform on the planet. Nobody's going to argue with that. Now, as I highlighted, the mainframe's critical platform for our businesses, and it remains so today, even over the decades and now in today's hybrid IT world. As we look at the mainframe as this critical transaction workhorse, now albeit it sits on the back end, but it's front-ended by so many web and mobile applications today. If you're a developer, it's a critical component in a CI/CD pipeline, for example. We're opening up more and more APIs today. I hope you're all familiar with Zoe. So we even have an open source initiative dedicated to mainframe as well. In addition to all of this, there's so much business critical data, so much business relevant data that sits on the mainframe today. And because of that, in order to get deeper insights into what has happened over the years in our businesses to help us plan for the future, a lot of that data from the mainframe takes part in big data initiatives for analysis and intelligence and everything else. So I don't need to say any more to highlight how critical the mainframe remains and continues to be in this hybrid IT world. It's all very good, it's well placed for now and for the future. But what that does is that increased connectivity, that increased participation this platform has in today's hybrid IT world opens us up to a lot more threats. Okay, we now start to see a lot more risks on the mainframe platform. And again, I emphasize, why we need to have this very strong focus on security. Now, one of the things I mentioned there is there's an enormous amount of data that sits on the mainframe platform. In fact, you can look at various, reports, statistics, everything else. Probably close to 3/4 of the world's business data actually sits on the mainframe platform. Now, another aspect, another facet of that, which is very important, if you consider the type of data that we have on the mainframe, it's typically data used in transactions. It's a lot of account information, whether that's a bank account or a retail account. We have a lot of credit card information sits up there. Many of you probably work for healthcare companies, so a lot of patient records. So not only does the mainframe provide host to a lot of business data, it's probably also providing host to most of the world's sensitive data. And a lot of that data is private and therefore very heavily regulated. And I always argue that today, the most regulated artifact that we deal with is data. There are more regulations around data than there are around anything else. There are regional levels, national levels, even international levels, like, for example, GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And you can see on the slide here, there can be fairly significant fines imposed on companies that do not comply. So the risk of non-compliance is very, very heavy. Never mind just paying these fines, the sheer reputational damage of having a data breach and losing this private information can be catastrophic. And you've seen examples, I'm not going to name companies, but you've seen plenty of examples over the years of where that happens. And one thing I want to highlight is there are a number of ways that this data can be breached, but I want to emphasize from the latest, actually this year's Verizon security report, we're approaching 3/4 of the number of breaches that occur are caused because valid credentials are actually stolen by an attacker. And I want you to keep that in mind as I move forward here. So, over the years, certainly in the initial decades of the mainframe, our focus on security was really put around what we call the external security managers, what by name you would know as ACF2, Top Secret, RACF. It's an extremely good security model there. But in order to be truly secure in today's hybrid IT world, we have to go beyond just having an access control focus. We really need to look at an entire security lifecycle. What do I mean by that? I mean looking at understanding where are all my risks. So understanding the scope of the risks on the platform and then prioritizing these risks so that I know which ones to tackle first. Once I understand my risks, then I need to look at what controls do I need to put in place to mitigate those risks. Okay, I then implement those controls. And then a very important aspect that comes next is now I need to monitor. I need to monitor these controls to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. I need to monitor user activity so that even though I have some users that are authorized to do things, I want to make sure they're staying within the bounds of what they're authorized to do. So I have this, understanding the risks, putting the controls in place to mitigate the risks, then monitoring the controls and the users. And as I see changes, as I see things happening, as I see new risks introducing themselves, I go back around the life cycle again. So we at Broadcom, we very much have focused over the years, over the decades, at really filling out this security lifecycle. And that's one of the key areas of differentiation that we have, is that we have the most comprehensive way of filling out this lifecycle. And let me give an example of what we've been doing over the years. So let's go back to what I talked about in the beginning there, the security managers, ACF2, Top Secret, RACF. We've brought these security managers up to date with very modern security capabilities. We've added advanced authentication in there so that we really reinforce that we understand who the user is that's logging in. They truly are who they say they are with multi-factor authentication. In addition to that, we understand that there are critical users on the platform, what we call the privileged users. These users have very extensive access to the mainframe itself. And because of that, we have to put additional controls in place. Hopefully many of you are familiar with the principles of least access. It's one of the ways we try and manage risk in a security environment is we make sure that people really just have access to what they need to do their jobs. And that's what we do in this whole area of privileged access management is only when a user truly needs that extensive access will they get that access. When they finish that job, they will go back to their least privileged access. And being able to do that significantly reduces the risk on the platform, and that's something else we've introduced recently. We also have to look at data access in particular. I talked about what a regulated environment we live in from a data perspective. So delivering the capabilities that allow you to really understand your data landscape and therefore adjust the data access rules based on that. So understanding where is my sensitive data stored? What type of sensitive data do I have? Is it patient healthcare records, credit card numbers, personally identifiable information? So be able to put that into classes and then understand of all these sensitive data sets that I have in the mainframe, what's the list of users that have access to them? And in addition to that, of all those users, let's say I have 100 users that have access to very sensitive information, I want to know who has actually, out of that list of 100 users, who's actually been accessing it? Okay, maybe there's only a list of 20 users that have actually been accessing it. I now have 80 users that maybe over the past 12 months have the authorization to access data and they've never done it. I could probably remove these users and the business wouldn't notice any difference. But there would be one difference. My risk is significantly reduced. Right, so understanding that data landscape and being able to provide you with a view of who's authorized to access it, who's actually been accessing it, gives you the information you need to reduce the risk in your business. Now, I also talked earlier about monitoring. So now it's very, very important. I may authorize Joe to access very sensitive data sets, but I might find that Joe's normal activity is Monday to Friday, he accesses data sets X, Y, and Z. But I've now noticed that at the weekends, he's accessing a whole bunch of other data sets that he normally wouldn't access. And instead of downloading a couple of records, he's downloading thousands. That's why monitoring is very important. He may be authorized to do that, but I want to see if he's staying within his normal behavior. And if he's not, I want to be alerted. So that's why monitoring is so critical, and it's a key part of this security lifecycle. So as I do that, I put my controls in place, and I use capabilities that help me monitor what's going on in the security environment. And then I can adjust as I go around. I can start to adjust what different people have access to, etc., certainly as jobs change. So hopefully that makes sense about how we truly fill out this security life cycle and give you a very comprehensive set of capabilities to, as I said before, truly make the mainframe platform the most secure platform in your enterprise. So going beyond that, these are key pieces of this security life cycle, but the mainframe is one platform in your organization. I guarantee every one of you that's listening right now has more than a mainframe. You have Unix platforms, you have Windows platforms, etc., etc. So it's important that we, from a security perspective, treat the mainframe as just another platform from an enterprise security perspective. And that's why we focused on making sure that's the case. So if you're doing privileged access management, we're providing the necessary integrations to make sure there's integration with privileged access management systems on the distributed platforms, so you can manage privileged users on an enterprise-wide basis, not have a fragmented approach that differs across different platforms. In addition to that, your security operations people, right, they want visibility across all platforms. If I have an abnormal event happening somewhere, I don't want to switch from one screen to look at mainframe and another screen to look at other platforms. I want an enterprise-wide view, and again, that's a focus we have had in making sure the mainframe is integrated into the Security Operations Center. Being able to assess your environment and improve. Not every one of you is an expert on security best practices. We have that expertise. So what we are doing is we're delivering assessments and reporting aligned with best practices, so you can use these tools to assess your environment and see how well aligned you are with the best practices, and then use that to improve your security configurations. And then going beyond that, we're also delivering insights. There are a lot of capabilities on the mainframe platform for delivering security. There are a lot of capabilities for giving you insights into where your risks are. We're now doing the heavy lifting to really bring those capabilities together, where maybe you don't have the skills to use these tools in conjunction and get those deep insights. That's what we're delivering now, is we're pulling these tools together from multiple different security domains so we can understand and give you reports that say, I want to understand, for example, for these critical records that I have on this platform, I want to know everyone that has access to that. That requires multiple tools. We're going to do the heavy lifting in giving you these reports, giving you those insights into your security environment. But don't just take my word for it. We have a lot of customers out there that are leveraging these tools today. And this one in particular, this is a very large global insurance company. One of the things that they ran into was they had noticed that on the non-mainframe environment, they had done extremely well in modernizing and taking advantage of some of the latest security capabilities. and were somewhat complacent. They thought, you know what, the mainframe's secure, it will be fine. And then they realized that the mainframe was way behind from a modernization perspective. And they came to us, and we're very pleased to find out that we have continue to update the mainframe with a lot of the modern security capabilities that are undistributed. So they were able to add advanced authentication, multi-factor authentication to their access control, privileged access management, and then truly have visibility into the data in their environments, the classifications of data and everything else. So that's where they reaped the benefits, was they were able to manage the security lifecycle and modernize their mainframe security environment, allowing them to keep pace with their distributed environment and truly secure the mainframe like it needs to be secured. So let me wrap up here and just give you a view of where you can really look to get started. One of the things we strongly recommend is really to assess your current posture. And as I mentioned previously, we provide these assessments, provide these tools. You can very quickly look at your security environment, run a health check, understand your databases, etc. Look at how your access control systems are configured, and align that with best practices. And we will arrange these reports in such a way that we show you where your high risk, medium risk, low risks are, so you know where to start. And then based on these, you'll understand the type of controls, the type of tools you need to put in place in order to mitigate a lot of those risks. So I really hope this was useful. And I'm very much looking forward to partnering with many of you in the future. So please connect with us for any help you need with mainframe security. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Stuart. I'll just open the floor up to questions now. Has anybody got anything you want to discuss, debate, etc.? Feel free to unmute your mic if you want to. While we're waiting, Stuart, have you got any pearls of wisdom you would like to impart?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to just get, feedback. I assume you can hear me. Am I unmuted okay?
You're unmuted, yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'd just love to get some feedback on some of the broader issues the audience is dealing with right now. For example, I talk to a lot of our clients, and skills is a huge issue with security, right? It's one of the things I highlighted there is that the more and more help I get about getting insights into a lot of what the very capable tools can do. And I'm not just talking about our tools. I'm talking about the tools from IBM and BMC and everybody else, right? The key point is, they're very powerful security tools, but it also requires extremely experienced users to use them, right? And it'd be good to have maybe a discussion around skills. We know there's certainly a great erosion of skills. Do you have the skills necessary? Is that an area where some of the audience need a little additional help? And if that is the case, are there particular areas, right, of security that some of that help is a higher priority, for example?
Yes, indeed. I suppose over the years we've lost many security specialists from my firm. We do have an apprenticeship scheme in place now where we're getting new people in, new blood, who are training to pick up these skills. But we also rely a lot on companies like RSM Partners and people like that to come in and do sort of pre-audit audits and things like that.
Yep. Yep.
Jamie, you got anything you'd like to add?
I didn't know Jamie was out there. Jamie's usually never short of questions.
Of course not. Hi, Stuart. Sorry, I was trying to unmute my line. No, really good presentation, by the way. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that there's, and I wrote a paper on this recently for GSE, was this, you know, there's no doubt about it. We've got this, you know, big skills shortage. You know, there are less and less of us as every year goes by. But I think one of the things that I fear is that, you know, we don't have, we're not getting enough what I call the security thinkers, you know, that are actually doing the job, and it becomes almost like a, you know, for some like a process, you know, type sort of thing, and not so focused on this kind of security outcome, as it were. So that's one of my big concerns. It's that you know, like I said in my my GSE article, it's about having that right mindset to do the right thing, to, you know, to implement good security, and I don't know. I think it takes. Are you kind of born with it, or can you learn it? Yes, of course you can. But I think we need more of that coming through the industry.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's an extremely good point. That outcomes focus is absolutely critical, because at the end of the day, you know, we're all businesses, right? And, you know, there are business outcomes that help us prioritize, you know, what we need to do from a security point of view, right? And, you know, that helps, you know, when you go back to, you know, you're talking about some of the best practices and everything else, that's really ultimately what needs to drive that. You know, what are our business priorities? Therefore, what are the list of priorities that security is there to help protect? I remember talking to a very large customer of everybody's, right? It's not just ours, right? A very large customer. And he said, you know, there are 3 reasons I put security in, right, on the mainframe. And it's compliance, compliance, and compliance, right? And actually, you know, when you think about that, that really is, you know, you've got the audit teams and everything else, and they're continually auditing the business because they're coming at it from what is important to the business. And therefore, what risks can I just not accept? And they will audit around that. So you find the security teams are very, very much focused on compliance and dealing with these audits and looking for product enhancements or new solutions that help them get through audits, you know, with a lot less effort, for example, because they're very time consuming, right? So I think that's one of the ways in which I'm sure a lot of you out there, you know, look at security and help prioritize around that, is look at, you know, from a business compliance, from a regulatory compliance, internal compliance perspective, you know, what do I really need to be doing, right? And that's just, you know, going back to your point about outcomes, right?
Yeah, I also think another thing that I've seen, and it's still very prevalent, is the mainframe's still the poor cousin in a lot of environments. And, you know, I think that us as mainframe security practitioners are really battling with kind of trying to keep our like sort of heads above the water, as it were, and just not getting the management support that we need to be able to do a better job at, you know, securing the platform. And I've really struggled how you know, how do you really fix that issue? And, you know, I've long kind of been an advocate of getting auditors and the folk, you know, on your side to kind of raise significant issues so that they get into reports and things, so that it does, you know, sorry, James, I'm not picking on you, but, you know, to get the attention from management that, you know, that the mainframe does need just as much attention as the other platforms do. And
yeah,
very frustrating.
It is frustrating, and that's, you know, it's a key driver again with us and, you know, the companies we partner / compete with, let's say, right? You know, with, you know, we work a lot with IBM especially in this area, is platform relevance, right? Platform importance for the mainframe. And you know, one of the big drivers that we as mainframe vendors have is tighter integration with the other platforms, right? Because if you leave it isolated, it will remain isolated, right? You know, so from a security point of view, One of the examples I gave was a customer that said, you know, and it highlights your point exactly. We just found that suddenly the mainframe was not very modern from a security point of view, because it had been, let's say, there was a lot of complacency. Mainframe secure, and it is secure if you configure it that way, right? But they left it behind. They hadn't added much modern security functionality. They were still using 8-character passwords, right? They weren't using passphrases or multi-factor authentication. They weren't even aware that a lot of that was available. So one of the important points is this whole modernization of mainframe security to add privilege access management, to add data loss prevention and all these additional capabilities, but at an enterprise integration level. Because if we add these in isolation, we leave the platform that way. And I can't remember how you put it, but kind of the poor cousin, I think you said. Leave it that poor cousin, the red-headed stepchild, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good that the vendors are, you know, crossing the boundaries across the different platform. Because at the end of the day, when I talk to most chief information security officers nowadays, you know, they're younger guys. They're not, you know, not as old as me and people older, right? So they grew up not in a mainframe environment. They grew up in a distributed environment. So there's familiarity with the mainframe is a lot lower, right? And that causes a problem too.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lady on this call who I actually work with. I won't mention her name, so otherwise we'll give away the company. But we often end up in discussions with, you know, some of the distributed focus, you know, we call them, and they laugh at us like, oh, you can have more than 8 characters on the mainframe, and then you can have these security features there, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, kept up. And you know, I think sort of some of us have sort of tried to do sort of an awareness with, you know, that the mainframe, you know, the security features can compete just as well, you know, with what's available out there in the other platforms. And I think it's almost incumbent on us mainframers to keep, like, you know, internally promoting, you know, the platform, and you know, we can put these rich security features, you know, in place. But like I said, there's this culture out there that looks at it as still very, you know, it's stuck back in the 80s and hasn't moved on.
Yep. You know, and a number of, let's say, you know, a number of companies are involved in Zoe. You know, hopefully, you know, everyone's at least heard of, and you know, hopefully many people are involved with Zoe now. But it's an open source initiative dedicated to mainframe, right? But you know, one of the key reasons for it being there is to integrate mainframe, you know, into the enterprise more seamlessly, right? To start to bring in this, you know, younger generation, the millennials, etc. You know, and it started really from a DevOps, you know, point of view. We had our contributions, Rocket did, IBM, you know, had contributions, you know, software contributions to this. But the ultimate goal is more connectivity with the mainframe and broaden the user set, the younger millennials, etc. There too. We added a lot of security to that, right? Because if you're going to integrate, you know, our beloved platform, you're going to have to do it securely, right? And we collaborated, you know, on that particular area very intensely, right? And again, that's another area that, you know, we hope to make the, you know, the platform more appealing, more integrated, more relevant, you know, in modern business. You know, there are certainly a lot of different things going on. I think open source is very critical. You know, and another area, you see so many more APIs being open. Yes, Zoe is driving a lot of that, but more APIs for the platform, so that services that are available in the platform services that are on the platform are more available to other platforms, right? Again, that's critical too, because there are so many workloads, let's say, that just run best on the mainframe, especially transaction workloads, workloads that have significant I/O. You know, I'm not trying to slam my distributed counterparts, but you talk about I/O, it's a lot more limited, you know, on distributed platforms compared to the mainframe. So it's helping to, you know, get the line of business and other organizations to understand what the mainframe does best, let it do that, make it be more integrated in the enterprise, and let's just continue to drive the MIPS on the platform, but the MIPS that it's good at, right? And you know, having that secure connectivity up there is critical, and obviously we're going to continue to focus on that area.
Okay. Has anybody got any other questions to answer? If you want to answer a question, just post something in the chat window and I'll unmute you. It seems not. Okay. All right, well, it just reminds me to thank you, Stuart, for your presentation. I'm sure everybody found it interesting. I did as well. Being an auditor, I sort of live and breathe this sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it was certainly my pleasure. It's just, I mean, I love this event every year. Obviously disappointed I couldn't be there in person, because it's nice to, you know, connect with a lot of old friends and colleagues. So sincerely hope we manage to, you know, get a little bit more normalcy next year and get together in person again.
Yeah, in South Wales and Celtic Manor, hopefully.
Yep.
All right, then I'll just put this final screen up. If I can find where its session's gone. Okay, I want to do that. So this is, if you're seeing it, hopefully, this is the link to give your feedback. That QR code is correct. I've gone in and actually changed it so it goes to the right feedback place. So I'll leave that a few minutes there for you to scan it and start submitting your feedback. And once you've done that, I'll point you onto this screen, which is our charity donation screen. If you click on that QR code, it'll take you to Virgin Money Giving, and where you can submit £1 or £2, whatever you feel like, just in appreciation of this session and others that we've held today and will continue to do so for the next 2 weeks. Okay, and with that then I will close this session and bid you farewell.